The story of the Wampanoag people begins over 12,000 years ago with their first seeds deeply planted in the soil of Turtle Island. With Wampanoag stewardship and appreciation for the gift of earth, these seeds grew into strong roots that established the undeniable tradition of Wampanoag connection to the land. From before the Pokanoket's discovery of the Mayflower, and amidst forced change to European lifestyle and rule, to today's fight for clean water, land, language, and ceremonial practice, these are the stories of the Wampanoag, the original inhabitants of Turtle Island. Born around 1638 in the region now known as Massachusetts, Metacomet was the second son of Massasoit Usamakun, the respected Wampanoag sachem who forged crucial alliances with European settlers. Although we know his father's identity, the exact identity of Metacomet's mother remains unclear in written history. What we do know is that during the time of Metacomet's birth and into young adulthood, tensions between the Pokanoket people and European settlers were considered tame due to the necessary alliance with Plymouth settlers. The alliance formed after a plague known as the Great Dying decimated about 90% of the Wampanoag population. Foreign diseases brought through European trade had weakened many tribes on Turtle Island by this time. With the survival of his tribal nation in mind, Usamakwen made the decision to save the remaining lives of his people through alliance. This alliance would include the education of Massasoit's children in English customs. This was a common occurrence among the Wampanoag people, sending their sons to learn the ways of other tribes, or in this case, European nations, provided not only a form of translation, but ties of kinship and an understanding that helped maintain shared space and peace in Wampanoag culture. Metacomet, being one of the first generations of Turtle Island children to grow up with Euro integration, gave him and his brother Wamsutta a unique perspective from those before them. Metacomet and his brother Wamsutta, for a time, learned to live as friends with the children of the European settlers, while also learning important aspects of their ways. Metacom and his siblings played significant roles in their community. His older brother Wamsutta, who had come to be given the English name Alexander, prepared to be the next sachem, developing skills in politics and negotiation tactics. Meanwhile, Metacomet, who had been given the English name Philip, learned the skills of a panis, or bodyguard, to a sachem. Though their paths were set in different directions, the brothers were raised to ensure the survival of the Pokanoket people. With age, Metacomet remained cordial to European settlers, finding ways to live within the agreed-upon setting Massasoit Usamakwen had established for his sons. But by 1661, Massasoit Usamakwen had passed away, leaving Metacomet's brother Wamsutta as the new sachem. As Wamsutta took on the role of Massasoit, we can only imagine he felt the weight of his father's legacy and the immense responsibility to uphold the fragile peace that had been established. Metacomet, now married to Wouton Ganeski, the daughter of Chief Corbitant, watched with a mix of pride and apprehension as his brother stepped into leadership. He supported Wamsutta's efforts, yet harbored a simmering concern about the settlers' true intentions. Metacomet felt an unwavering commitment to protect his people's land and way of life, even as the tensions began to rise. With Wamsutta as the new sachem and Metacomet being a young father, the men began to observe the encroachment of land by European settlers. They saw how it affected their lives and the lives of their children, and the killing of their crops. The once calm relations began to strain as more settlers arrived and their demands grew. In 1662, Wamsutta was summoned to Duxbury by the English authorities under suspicious circumstances. He fell ill and died shortly after his release, leading to widespread suspicion among the Wampanoag people that he had been poisoned. This tragic event deeply affected Metacomet, opening the doors to his distrust of the settlers. After Wamsutta's death, Metacom and his sister-in-law began to speak up more about their distrust of the English and their forced way of life. The death of John Sassamon, a Christianized Native American who warned the English of potential Wampanoag uprising, led to the trial and execution of 3 Native men without a fair trial. This injustice resonated deeply among the Wampanoag people, reinforcing the belief that the only way to sustain their way of life was to fight back. When the English demanded that the Wampanoags turn their weapons over, Metacomet and his people had had enough. The war was about to begin. On June 20th, 1675, when members of the Pokanoket Wampanoag tribe looted several homes in Swansea, Massachusetts. Shots were exchanged, and the conflict quickly escalated, engulfing all of New England in brutal fighting. The war, though necessary, had devastating effects on the Wampanoag and other Native American tribes in the region. Many lives were lost, communities were destroyed, and survivors faced displacement and enslavement. A major effect of the war was the divisions among the tribes, with some choosing to ally with the English for survival purposes. Sadly, in August 1676, Metacomet was killed by colonial forces. This was a turning point in the war. As a grim symbol of their victory, the settlers severed Metacomet's head and displayed it on a pike in Plymouth for over 2 decades. His body parts were quartered and hung in the woods and forest of Massachusetts. His wife and young son, also captured, were then indentured and sold into slavery, further illustrating the brutal consequences of the conflict. Though the Wampanoag had been overwhelmed in their fight against colonialism, the spirit of Metacomet remained throughout the years in the hearts of his descendants and Wampanoag people. The death of Metacomet and the entire war had a profound and devastating impact on Wampanoag people. Many lives were lost, their villages destroyed, and survivors faced displacement and enslavement. The war also led to the theft of King Philip's wampum belt, a symbol of great cultural and spiritual significance, further deepening the wounds inflicted on the Wampanoag community. Their spirit of resistance and resilience persisted through the centuries, continuing the fight to this very day. The legacy of Metacomet and his war and the loss of the wampum belt still resonate with the Wampanoag people, reminding them of the struggles and sacrifices of their ancestors. Today,
The Wampanoag honor their ancestors by preserving their culture, advocating for their rights, and educating future generations. The legacy of Metacomet and the Wampanoag remains a powerful testament to their enduring strength and unwavering commitment to their homelands and beliefs.